An original story narrated exclusively for Love Written in Silence. Lady Evelyn Ashmere stands at the edge of a garden wedding, her gloved hands trembling as she watches the man who once promised her forever pledge himself to another woman. The sun is too bright, the laughter too loud, and when a guest's cruel whisper reaches her ears, calling her presence a necessary spectacle, something inside her breaks. She turns and runs, her silk skirts catching on white chairs as tears stream down her face, blurring the rows of smiling guests into a watercolor of judgment. At the garden's edge, she collides with a man in dark formal dress, Dominic Rivington, Duke of Crestbourne, the most powerful nobleman in the county, and he does not flinch, does not ask questions. He simply covers her with his cloak and leads her to his carriage with quiet authority, while the entire wedding party watches in stunned silence. In that single moment, Evelyn's ruin becomes something else entirely, a door opening into a world where power is not used to punish, but to protect. The carriage rattles over the countryside road, and Evelyn watches the hedgerows pass with a kind of numb detachment. She has been traveling since dawn, and every mile has felt like a descent into a past she thought she had escaped. The estate where Alistair will marry is only 2 miles ahead now. She can see the church spire rising above the trees, pale stone against a sky too blue for the occasion. She should not have come. She knows this. But the invitation arrived 6 weeks ago, written in Alistair's own hand, and the wording was careful, calculated. It would mean a great deal to see you there, Evelyn. A gesture of goodwill, for the sake of the county. Translation: your presence will prove I have nothing to hide. Your silence will confirm my innocence. She rehearses composure. She has practiced it for years. The slight smile that suggests serenity. The posture that implies dignity. The careful blankness of expression that prevents anyone from seeing the guilt that lives beneath her ribs like a second heartbeat. Because she does feel guilty. Not for leaving Alistair. That was the only moral choice she could have made. But for the silence she chose afterward. For the young woman she could not protect. For the years she spent believing that keeping quiet was the same as keeping safe. The carriage slows as it approaches the estate gates. Evelyn's hands are shaking. She presses them together in her lap, willing them to still. She will walk into that garden. She will stand at the edge of the ceremony. She will be the ghost Alistair needs her to be. Proof that he has moved beyond scandal, that he is respectable, that the past can be buried under fresh vows and summer roses. She will do this because she has no choice. Because the alternative is to speak, and speaking would destroy the one person she was trying to save. The carriage stops. The footman opens the door. Evelyn steps out into the sunlight, and the estate spreads before her like a stage set. White chairs arranged in perfect rows, an altar draped in silk. Guests in their finest, already seated, already watching. She walks slowly toward the garden, her heart a stone in her chest. She does not belong here, but she will stand here anyway, because that is what she has learned to do. To exist in spaces that do not want her, to carry burdens that are not hers, to apologize with her very presence for the crime of having once believed she deserved more. The ceremony has not yet begun. She finds a place at the very back, near the hedge, where she can see, but not be seen. A few guests glance her way. Their expressions are polite, but their eyes are cold. She knows what they are thinking. She has heard the rumors for years. Poor Sir Alistair. She left him without explanation. Some say she was unstable. Others say she was cruel. None of them know the truth, and she cannot tell them. So she stands, and she waits, and she feels the weight of her own silence pressing down on her shoulders, like a physical thing. The ceremony begins with the soft swell of strings. The bride appears at the far end of the garden, radiant in white, and the guests rise as one. Evelyn remains standing at the back, her hands folded, her face carefully neutral. Alistair stands at the altar, tall and composed, his expression one of dignified joy. He looks every inch the gentleman, respectable, honorable, a man who has weathered scandal with grace. The bride reaches him, and they turn to face the officiant. The words begin, the familiar litany of vows, of promises, of futures built on certainty. Evelyn feels nothing, or rather she feels too much, and so it all compresses into a kind of numbness. She watches the ceremony unfold as if from a great distance, as if she is not really here at all. Then, during a pause in the vows, she hears it, a voice low and amused, from the row of chairs just ahead of her. Remarkable, isn't it, that she had the audacity to come? Another voice, equally low, equally pleased with itself. I suppose Alistair invited her. A kind of forgiveness, publicly displayed. It shows character, indeed, and it proves there was no real scandal. If there had been, she would not dare show her face. Evelyn's breath catches. She knows these men. Members of the county committee. Both of them. Men who have benefited from Alistair's patronage, who have praised his generosity, who have never once asked where the money actually goes. One of them continues, his voice dropping to a murmur she has to strain to hear. Once this is done, Alistair will have full control of the committee. No more questions, no more interference. The dispensary, the parish funds, all of it, properly managed. The other man chuckles. Properly managed. Yes, that is one way to put it. Something inside Evelyn snaps. Not loudly, not dramatically. Just a quiet, irrevocable fracture. She does not think. She simply moves. She turns away from the ceremony, away from the altar, away from the rows of seated guests. She walks quickly, her steps unsteady, and then she is running, her skirts catching on the edges of chairs, her breath coming in sharp gasps. She hears the murmur of confusion behind her, hears someone say her name, but she does not stop. She cannot stop. She runs through the garden, past the altar, past Alistair's startled face, past the bride's wide eyes. She runs until she reaches the edge of the garden, where the gravel path begins, and then she stumbles, her vision blurred with tears. She collides with something solid. A man. She gasps, tries to pull away, but a hand steadies her, firm but not rough. "Forgive me," she chokes out, her voice breaking. The man does not speak. He simply removes his cloak, dark, heavy, expensive, and drapes it over her shoulders, covering her trembling frame. Then he turns, and with one hand lightly at her elbow, he guides her toward a waiting carriage. Evelyn does not resist. She cannot. She is crying too hard, her breath coming in ragged sobs, and she does not even know who this man is. She only knows that he is not asking questions. He is not demanding explanations. He is simply leading her away from the garden, away from the eyes, away from the ceremony that was supposed to be her final humiliation. The carriage door opens. He helps her inside. She collapses onto the seat, her hands covering her face, and she hears the door close softly. The carriage begins to move. It is only then, as her breathing begins to slow, that she looks up and sees the man sitting across from her. He is older than Alistair, perhaps in his early 40s, with dark hair touched with gray at the temples. His face is angular, composed, and his eyes are steady, not pitying, not curious, just steady. "You are safe," he says quietly. That is all that matters. Evelyn stares at him, her mind struggling to catch up. She knows this man. Everyone in the county knows him. Dominic Rivington, Duke of Crestbourne, the most powerful nobleman in the region. A man whose word can shape policy, whose patronage can make or break a family. And he has just taken her away from Alistair's wedding, in full view of the entire county. She opens her mouth to speak, but no words come. She can only sit there, wrapped in his cloak, and feel the weight of what has just happened settle over her, like a shroud. Crestbourne House rises before them as the carriage turns through the gates, stone and ivy, tall windows reflecting the late afternoon light. Evelyn has never been here before. She has seen it from a distance, of course, as everyone has. But to pass through these gates, to enter this house, feels like stepping into another world. Entirely. The carriage stops. The Duke descends first, then offers his hand. Evelyn takes it, her legs unsteady beneath her. A servant appears, and the Duke speaks to him in a low voice. The servant nods and disappears into the house. "Come," the Duke says, and he leads her inside. The entrance hall is vast and quiet. No crowds, no noise, just the soft echo of their footsteps on marble. Evelyn follows him through a corridor, up a staircase, and into a sitting room with a fire already burning in the hearth. The warmth is immediate, enveloping. "Sit," he says, gesturing to a chair near the fire. Evelyn sits. She is still wearing his cloak. She realizes this suddenly and begins to remove it. But he raises a hand. "Keep it. You are cold." She is. She had not noticed until now, but she is shaking, her hands icy despite the fire. The Duke moves to a side table and pours a glass of brandy. He brings it to her, pressing it gently into her hands. "Drink." Slowly, she obeys. The brandy burns, but it steadies her. She takes another sip, then sets the glass down on the table beside her. The Duke does not sit. He stands near the fire, his hands clasped behind his back, his expression thoughtful. "You do not have to explain," he says after a moment. "Not now, not ever, if you do not wish to." Evelyn looks up at him, startled. Your Grace, you were in distress. I intervened. That is all that needs to be said. But people will talk. People always talk. His tone is calm, matter of fact. It does not change what is right. Evelyn stares at him. She does not know what to say. She has spent years navigating a world where every action is calculated, where every gesture is weighed against reputation. And here is a man who seems entirely unbothered by the consequences of his kindness. I will arrange a room for you, he continues. You may stay as long as you need. There are no conditions. You are not a prisoner, nor are you obligated to me in any way. If you wish to leave tomorrow, a carriage will be provided. If you wish to stay longer, you are welcome. Evelyn's throat tightens. Why are you doing this? He meets her gaze, and for the first time she sees something in his eyes that is not composure or authority. It is something quieter, something almost sad, because no one should have to run alone, he says simply. That night, Evelyn lies in a bed that is not hers, in a house that is not hers, and she allows herself to weep, not for Alistair, not for the wedding, but for the years she has spent apologizing for her own existence, for the silence she has carried, for the guilt that has lived in her chest like a wound that never heals. She weeps until there are no more tears. And then in the quiet that follows, she feels something she has not felt in a very long time. Relief. 3 days pass in a kind of suspended stillness. Evelyn remains at Crestbourne House, not because she is trapped, but because she does not yet know where else to go. The Duke does not press her. He appears at meals, polite and distant, and otherwise leaves her to herself. She spends her days in the library, reading books she does not absorb, staring out windows at gardens she does not see. On the 4th morning, he finds her in the morning room, where she is sitting with a cup of tea she has not touched. I am visiting the dispensary this afternoon, he says. It is part of my responsibilities as patron. I wondered if you might accompany me. Evelyn looks up, surprised. The dispensary, yes. It serves the rural villages on the estate's edge. I make regular inspections. He pauses. I thought you might find it of interest. She does not know why he is asking her, but she finds herself nodding. I would be glad to. They travel by carriage, the road winding through fields and small cottages. The Duke is quiet during the journey, his gaze turned toward the window. Evelyn watches him, trying to understand this man who has offered her refuge without asking for anything in return. The dispensary is a low stone building, set back from the road. As they approach, Evelyn sees a small crowd gathered outside, mothers with children, elderly men and women, a few laborers in worn coats. They look cold. They look tired. The Duke descends from the carriage, and Evelyn follows. A woman in a nurse's apron appears in the doorway, elderly, her face lined with years of hard work. Your Grace, she says, curtsying. We were not expecting you today. I know, Mrs. Croft. Forgive the intrusion. I wanted to see how you are managing. Mrs. Croft's expression tightens, just slightly. Managing, Your Grace, as best we can. The Duke nods and enters the building. Evelyn follows, and what she sees stops her in her tracks. The shelves are nearly empty. A few jars of salve, a handful of bandages, a single sack of grain. The fire in the small hearth is barely more than embers. The room is cold, bitterly cold, and the people waiting inside are huddled together for warmth. Mrs. Croft sees Evelyn's expression and offers a tight smile. We make do, my lady. Where are the supplies? The Duke asks, his voice carefully controlled. We were told there was a delay, Your Grace. The committee said the funds were allocated, but the deliveries have not arrived. It has been 3 weeks now. The Duke's jaw tightens. He walks to the shelves, examining them with a scrutiny that is almost clinical. Then he turns to Mrs. Croft. 3 weeks, and no explanation. None, Your Grace. Evelyn moves to the hearth, where a young boy is sitting on the floor, his thin arms wrapped around his knees. She kneels beside him. Are you cold, sweetheart? The boy nods. Always cold now, miss. We used to have coal, but it stopped coming. Evelyn's chest tightens. She looks around the room, at the mothers trying to soothe fretful children, at the elderly man coughing into his hand, at the empty shelves that should be full. Mrs. Croft approaches her, her voice low. We never froze when Lady Evelyn was near, only when the gentleman began to manage us. Evelyn goes very still. She looks up at the nurse, her heart pounding. I beg your pardon. Mrs. Croft's eyes are kind, but there is steel in them. You don't remember me, my lady, but I remember you. Years ago, you used to visit the villages. You brought coal, medicine, bread. You never made a fuss about it. You just did it. And then you were gone, and the committee took over. And she gestures to the empty shelves. This is what we have now. Evelyn cannot speak. She feels the Duke's gaze on her, steady and assessing. Mrs. Croft continues, her voice soft but firm. I don't know what they said about you, my lady, but I know what I saw. And I know we were warmer when you were here. The Duke steps forward. Thank you, Mrs. Croft. I will see to it that supplies are delivered by the end of the week. You have my word. Mrs. Croft curtsies. Thank you, Your Grace. As they leave, the young boy follows them to the door. He tugs on the Duke's sleeve, and Dominic stops, looking down at him. Yes, the boy glances at Evelyn, then back at the Duke. Sir, if she is wicked, why does she keep us warm? The Duke does not answer. He cannot. He simply places a hand on the boy's head, a brief, gentle gesture, and then he leads Evelyn back to the carriage. They ride in silence for a long time. Finally, the Duke speaks. You were the one managing the dispensary. It is not a question. Evelyn nods slowly. Not officially, but yes, I used my own funds, my own connections. I did not want recognition. I only wanted to help. And when you left Alistair, he took control of the committee. He took credit for the work I had done. And then, she stops, her voice breaking. And then he let it all fall apart. The Duke's expression is unreadable, but his voice when he speaks is very quiet. I am beginning to understand. The following week, the Duke attends a meeting of the county committee. Evelyn does not go with him. She waits at Crestbourne House, pacing the library, her mind churning. When he returns, his expression is grim. They have suspended further funding to the dispensary, he says without preamble, pending a review. Evelyn's heart sinks. A review of what? Of the appropriateness of my associations. He says the word with distaste. They claim that my connection to you undermines the committee's moral authority. Evelyn closes her eyes. This is my fault. No, his voice is sharp. This is their cowardice. But the damage is done. Over the next few days, Evelyn hears the reports. No coal delivery. No medicine. No bread for the poorest families. The dispensary is running on fumes. And the people are suffering. She cannot bear it. She cannot sit in this beautiful house, warm and safe, while children freeze because of her. One evening, she slips out of Crestbourne House without telling anyone. She walks to the village, to the small shop where she once purchased supplies. The shopkeeper recognizes her, his expression wary. Lady Evelyn, I need coal, she says quietly, and medicine, as much as you can provide. I don't know if I should. She places her mother's pendant on the counter. It is the last piece of jewelry she owns, the last thing of value she has left. Please. The shopkeeper stares at the pendant, then at her. Finally, he nods. I'll have it delivered by morning. Evelyn returns to Crestbourne House before dawn. She does not tell the Duke what she has done. She simply goes to her room and sits by the window, watching the sun rise over the gardens. But the Duke finds out. Of course he does. A week later, he confronts her in the library, his expression a mixture of frustration and something softer. You sold your mother's pendant. Evelyn does not deny it. They needed coal. You should have told me. I would have provided. I know. She meets his gaze. But it was not your burden to carry. It was mine. He is silent for a long moment. Then he speaks, his voice carefully measured. I have been thinking. There is a way to resolve this. I can initiate a formal inquiry into the committee's management of funds. I can use my position to restore your name, to make it clear that you were not the villain they have painted you to be. Evelyn listens, her heart sinking. It would be managed through my office. He continues. Discreet, but effective. You would be protected. Your reputation would be restored. The dispensary would be funded properly. It is the logical solution. He is offering her everything. Safety, vindication, justice. But as she listens, she realizes what he is also offering. Control. Not malicious control. Not cruel control. But control nonetheless. He is trying to solve her, to fix her, to manage her life with the same efficiency he brings to everything else. And she cannot accept that. Thank you, she says softly. But no, he stares at her. Evelyn, I cannot be protected as a cause, Your Grace. I cannot be a problem you solve with documents and inquiries. I need to be seen as a person who makes her own choices, even if those choices are difficult. You are being stubborn, perhaps. She stands, her hands steady. But I am also being honest, and I think you deserve honesty. That night, she packs her few belongings. She writes a note, brief and clear. I cannot be protected as a cause. Forgive me. She leaves before dawn, slipping out of Crestbourne House as quietly as she arrived. Dominic finds the note at breakfast. He reads it once, then again, and then he sets it down very carefully on the table. He does not chase after her. He knows that would be the worst thing he could do. She left because he tried to control her, even with the best of intentions. Chasing her would only prove her point. Instead, he sits in his study and stares at the empty chair across from him, the one she used to occupy during their quiet evenings. And he feels for the first time in years the coldness of his own order. He has spent his life wielding power with precision, justice, efficiency, control. These have been his tools. But Evelyn has shown him that power, even when used justly, can become a cage. He does not know how to fix this. He does not know how to love without managing, how to protect without controlling, but he knows he must try. He begins with the ledgers. He pulls every record the committee has kept for the past 5 years. He cross-references invoices, delivery receipts, fund allocations. He works through the night, his eyes burning, his mind sharp, and he finds it. The pattern is subtle, but it is there. Funds allocated for coal that was never purchased. Medicine ordered, but never delivered. Bread paid for, but never distributed. The money went somewhere, but not to the people who needed it. He speaks to tradesmen quietly. He speaks to servants. He speaks to the people who actually do the work of mercy, the ones who see what happens when charity becomes a performance. And slowly, piece by piece, the truth emerges. Alistair has been using the committee as a personal fund, skimming money, inflating costs, taking credit for work he never did. And Evelyn was cast out to protect that lie. Dominic sits in his study, the ledgers spread before him, and he feels something he has not felt in a very long time. Rage. Not the cold, calculated anger he uses in political battles, but something hotter, something more human. Evelyn was right. She was always right, and he tried to solve her instead of believing her. He will not make that mistake again. The letter arrives on a grey afternoon. It is addressed to Sir Alistair Pembroke, and it is signed by the Duke of Crestbourne. It is brief, formal, and devastating. You are summoned to Crestbourne House to account for discrepancies in the county committee's financial records. Attendance is not optional. Alistair arrives 2 days later, accompanied by 2 members of the committee. They are shown into the Duke's estate office, a room Alistair has never seen before, a room that feels more like a courtroom than a study. The Duke is seated behind his desk, his expression unreadable. The ledgers are spread before him. Sit, the Duke says. They sit, and then the door opens. Evelyn enters. Alistair goes pale. What is she doing here? Lady Evelyn has been invited. The Duke says calmly, as have you. Evelyn does not look at Alistair. She walks to the desk and places a single ledger beside the Duke's, her own, from the years she quietly managed the dispensary. She does not speak. She simply opens it to a marked page. The Duke gestures to the committee members. Gentlemen, I have reviewed the accounts you submitted for the past 5 years. I have also reviewed the actual costs of coal, medicine, and bread, as reported by the tradesmen who supply them. There is a discrepancy. One of the committee members shifts uncomfortably. Your Grace, these matters are complex. They are not complex. The Duke's voice is cold. They are simple. Money was allocated. Goods were not delivered. Where did it go? Silence. Evelyn speaks, her voice quiet but clear. I kept records. Every purchase I made, every delivery I arranged. The costs are here. They are lower than what the committee reported. Significantly lower. Alistair's jaw tightens. This is absurd. You are taking the word of a disgraced woman over the committee's official records. I am taking the word of tradesmen, nurses, and mothers, the Duke says, and I am taking the evidence of empty shelves and freezing children. Your records do not match reality, Sir Alistair, and I want to know why. Alistair stands, his face flushed. You have no authority to. I have every authority. The Duke's voice is quiet, but it cuts through the room like a blade. I am the patron of this committee, and I am withdrawing that patronage effective immediately, pending a full accounting. The room goes silent. Alistair stares at the Duke, his mouth opening and closing, but no words come. Evelyn does not gloat. She feels only exhaustion, and beneath it, the faintest pulse of relief. The Duke continues, his tone measured. You will provide a full account of every fund allocated over the past 5 years. You will do so within the month. If you cannot, or will not, the matter will be referred to the magistrate. Alistair's face is ashen. He looks at Evelyn, and for the first time she sees something in his eyes that is not arrogance or cruelty. It is fear. You have destroyed me, he whispers. No, Evelyn says softly. You destroyed yourself. I only chose not to be destroyed with you. Alistair leaves without another word. The committee members follow, their expressions grim. When the door closes, Evelyn sinks into a chair, her hands trembling. The Duke moves to her side, kneeling so that they are at eye level. You were right, he says quietly. I tried to manage you. I tried to solve you. I am sorry. Evelyn looks at him, her eyes bright with unshed tears. You believed me. In the end, you believed me. That is enough. He takes her hand gently. It is not enough, but it is a beginning. In the days that follow, the county does not erupt. It shifts quietly, like a landscape after a long winter. Alistair withdraws from public life. The committee is restructured. The dispensary receives the supplies it needs: coal, medicine, bread, and the people begin to trust again. Evelyn does not return to society as a celebrated figure. She does not want that. She simply begins to live without hiding. She visits the dispensary regularly. She speaks to the mothers, the nurses, the children. She does the work she has always done, but now she does it without shame. One evening, the Duke finds her in the library. She is reading by the fire, a blanket draped over her lap. He stands in the doorway for a moment, watching her, and she looks up and smiles. Join me. He sits in the chair across from her. For a while, they are silent, the fire crackling softly between them. Finally, he speaks. I have spent my life believing that justice was enough, that if I acted fairly, if I wielded power responsibly, that would be sufficient. He pauses. But you have shown me that mercy requires courage I did not know I lacked. Evelyn sets her book aside. And you have shown me that I do not have to earn the right to exist. He reaches across the space between them and takes her hand, not to claim it, just to hold it. I do not know what comes next, he says quietly, but I would like to find out. With you. She nods, her throat tight. I would like that too. Later, as the evening deepens, he leads her outside. The air is cool, the sky beginning to darken. He walks her to the main pathway through the garden, the one that has been closed for years, kept shuttered to avoid curious eyes. But tonight it is open, and at its entrance, a lamp burns steadily in the twilight. Evelyn stops, staring at the light. You opened it. Yes. He turns to her, his expression serious. You may come and go as you please. This is not a cage. It is a home, but only if you choose it. She looks at the lamp, at the open path, at him, and she feels something she has not felt in years. Freedom. Then I will stay, she says softly. He smiles, a rare, genuine smile that transforms his face. Good. They walk the path together, side by side, the lamp casting long shadows on the gravel. It is not a declaration of passion. It is not a grand romantic gesture. It is something quieter, something deeper. It is a commitment. To build something together, to live without shame, to love without ownership. And as they reach the end of the path, where the garden opens into the fields beyond, Evelyn realizes that this is not an ending. It is a beginning built on truth, on respect, on the quiet courage it takes to be seen. And for the first time in years, she is not afraid.